Hi, Mauricio. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Samantha. Great to be here.
So we hear a lot about SASE, and there's certainly a lot to talk about. What are you seeing? And let's just start with how do you define it?
That's a great question because we've seen the term since it came out in mid 2019 go all over the map, especially at RSA, which was the last time we saw many of each other. And over the course of the last year, it started to settle out. And here at Dell'Oro, we're taking a very pragmatic view in terms of how to define SASE. We don't see it necessarily as a completely new technology coming out of the blue. We see it as an integration between a number of technologies that have been around for a while in some instances. But the brass tacks is it's the combination of security technologies coming in from the firewall side, coming in from the secure web gateway side, coming together with the networking side, with the tip of the spear being software-defined WAN, so SD-WAN, and these technologies coming together in service of providing an integrated platform to provide an enterprise connectivity and security on that top of that unified platform. And so that's, for us, the basis of SASE and the emerging SASE market that we're starting to track.
No, that makes sense. And that's been what we at Juniper kind of see it as well, right? This convergence of existing technologies to kind of give way to a new, more extensible architecture for customers. So what are you hearing from your clients? When they call you, talk to you about SASE, what is driving their journey?
Great question. Again, a year ago, I was the one educating customers in terms of asking them, have you heard of SASE? And probably 8 out of 10 times, I was the person defining it for them and telling them, look, this is the way the emerging technologies around SASE are coming together. That has changed substantially. And the number one factor here has been the pandemic, and hope you all are doing well in this year in. And the pandemic has accelerated two enterprise trends that aren't necessarily new, but really got a kick with the arrival of the pandemic. The first was the teleworking. I don't know about you, but I've been here at home now for the last year, and everyone has been at home, right? So enterprises had to pivot from workforces in the office in the corporate setting to now having to support them somewhere else, predominantly at home. So that has really been the first inflection point about how to deal with this new style of corporate setting that, as we look towards the future, is really going to become the new normal. So the new term is hybrid work, and being able to split between a corporate setting and a non-corporate setting. And so SASE is one of those key things that has come into the conversation. The second factor, again, going back to the pandemic, has been the acceleration of digitalization of the enterprise. So going into the pandemic, a fair number of the enterprises were already far into their digitalization, becoming fully digital, mobile friendly, being able to do things on the internet. And with the pandemic, everything basically went online, right? So everything had to be conducted online via Zoom, via mobile phones, via an internet transaction. So that's been another big kicker, is now that the application infrastructures, as they move to the cloud, it's really causing a rethinking about, well, how does the networking and security architectures need to evolve in support of now the internet being part of the backbone, being where the data lives, where the applications live. So those are the two factors that have really kicked into gear why people are thinking about SASE and how that's now going to become part of their long-term IT conversation. And Samantha, let me from now's perspective, obviously I've given a pretty general perspective, but let me turn it around and ask you the same question. So you just gave your SASE strategy in your keynote,
Yes.
and I know Juniper has a wide customer base that includes service providers, enterprise, and the cloud customers. What are you hearing around SASE? I'd love to hear what your perspectives are.
Well, okay, I guess it's my turn to be in the hot seat. So you know what? We're hearing a lot about transformation, and I love that you use that word because that's really what it's about. And it's the transformation of an experience. And for us, when we're talking to customers, when we're hearing from them what their care abouts are, it's about how do I engage? How can I have a better experience for my customers? Let me give you a perfect example. When you think about how we used to share documents, it started off, we shared documents with one another with a USB stick. Then it went to, we started sharing it over email. And then it shifted to applications like Dropbox. And now we're using 365, and using the Google suite of applications. And so the technology, the idea of a document hasn't changed. It's how we interact with it. It's how we exchange it. And it's that overall experience. So for us, one of the things that we hear most about is how do I manage this? How do I, take this transformation throughout my organization? And so for us, it's about anchoring it in that experience and that management experience specifically, because we're not talking necessarily about new technologies, to your point, right? It's taking what's primarily been on premise and delivering it through the cloud. But what needs to change and what must change and what's guiding our strategy is that experience. It's providing that bridge to what you've been doing currently and frankly will continue to do in that hybrid world on premise, and kind of bringing that together with your transformation to how you are going to interact with your customers, your users. And really that's what I'm seeing, that's what I'm hearing, and that's why I'm really excited about what we at Juniper can do for our customers and partners today and in the future. So I'm going to put you back in the hot seat now.
I had a chuckle there, Samantha, when you said that you used to share things over USB. See, I'm old enough to share over floppies, right? So I'm not old enough to do punch cards, but hey, my first computer was floppy based, and that's how I exchanged games with my friends at school. It was here's a set of floppy disks. So there you go.
I won't confirm or deny that that was also my first experience, but let's just say we'll start with USB.
Okay, very good. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, so we know there's a transformation. We know we are talking about how we interact with the technologies. So thinking about market adoption, what should we be expecting over the next 24 to 48 months in terms of SASE growth?
That's a $1 billion question, and literally is a $1 billion question. It's because of the fact that in our modeling, so here at Dell'Oro, we love our numbers. We see the opportunity growing very quickly here in terms of the integration of those three sets of technology baskets that I enumerated. So again, firewalls, secure web gateways, and SD-WAN networking technologies coming together to form a SASE solution, or being able to service a SASE architecture. So in the bigger scheme of things, in 2019, those three markets consisted about $15 billion. And that's what I tell my clients is that, well, if these three technology baskets came in service of unified network and security connectivity, we're looking at an opportunity at the top end of nearly $15 billion. But I think the integration and the rate of adoption is a key factor in our modeling that says to us, or told us, and where we concluded that where things will land in the next 3 to 4 years is probably 30 to 40% in that $15 billion figure. So in terms of enterprises truly developing and integrating and deploying an integrated networking and security solution, we're probably looking north of $5 billion. So somewhere in that $5 to $6 billion range is the value of the technology. It's the SASE solutions that will get deployed. And longer term, we expect consolidation. Another question that comes up is, are all of these three technologies going to integrate and become into this massive SASE market? And the answer is that I don't believe so, right? So there will still be some customers who may choose to not deploy SASE in this unified networking and security style. And so the SD-WAN, the firewall markets, and secure web gate markets will continue to exist, perhaps in long tail dynamics. But in terms of SASE, it's white hot and growing from the tens of millions to probably hundreds of millions and low hundreds of millions today to north of 5 to 6 billion in the next several years.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, and I think it is going to be a phased approach. And to your point, right, you're always going to have that on-premise instance. It's not a one or the other. It's definitely has to be an and. That's something we talk about here. It's like it's an and strategy. It's not an or. So as we kind of think about what's to come in terms of this kind of convergence, what are some of the kind of strategic, top of mind things IT organizations should keep in mind related to SASE?
Well, I think you hit at the top level, use the word that I want to reuse, which is the notion of transformation and the fact that the workflows are going to change and the way that different teams interact with one another will need to change, because predicated in SASE is the fact that it's a much more user-centric, application data-centric model to being able to deploy networking and security. And so that means that the teams, the networking teams, the application teams and the data teams and the security teams will have to collaborate in new ways that perhaps they haven't historically had to work together. So as enterprises jump into thinking about SASE, they need to be thinking about, well, how is it that then my workflows and my teams are going to be able to are going to interact to be able then to, as you pointed out, be able to deliver that experience, the outcome that we're looking to provide with the SASE, to be able to support users and applications that may be anywhere distributed across the internet, and be able then to create this virtual corporate set of controls to provide connectivity and security. So that's what I would say is to any organization is think ahead and think holistically as you approach the question, since there will be a lot of ripple effect across the teams and to the workflows.
Wholeheartedly agree. Well, thank you for joining us, Maurizio. It was always a pleasure for the discussion and continuing on the topic of SASE. I do want to turn it over to you though and introduce a couple customers that we have joining us today. I have Dennis Doyne from the city of Philadelphia. Welcome, Dennis. And we have Jason Philp from Beeline. Both of our customers here would love to get their perspectives as well. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, Dennis. Hi, Jason. Thank you for joining me today to talk about your own journeys as they may be unfolding around SASE. I've got a couple questions to be able to go through and be able to hit on hot topics that I think our audience would like to hear about as you are on the SASE journey. Starting with you, Dennis, I'd like to ask you, what's driving your journey to SASE, and why is it that you're looking to make this transition now?
Sure, that's a great question. The pandemic over the last 12 months has really pushed us to think about what services we can provide to remote users that are not necessarily connected to our network all the time. And we're not in a position today to have an always-on VPN with the roughly 30,000 users that we have currently working. So for us, we have a immediate need for a cloud proxying solution, so we can have not only an auditing trail, but also provide endpoint protection to what these individuals are doing remotely while they're working on city-owned hardware and could be interfacing with city networks that are essentially applications that are not tied directly back over the VPN, but are cloud-facing. That is our main concern right now.
I see. So definitely a pandemic has kicked everything into gear. Yes. How about Jason? How about you, Jason? How about on your side? What has been driving you to embrace and start this SASE journey, and why now?
Sure. I mean, pandemic was obviously a pretty big one for us. But on top of that, we seem to be growing a lot more internationally. So it's that ability to get the end user exactly what they need, that similar experience from being within an office when they're working at home or internationally or pretty much wherever. That's what's really been most important to us.
I see. Well, in both senses, it seems like the pandemic kicked things into gear, and I'm sure you both did heroics at the beginning as things overnight shifted dramatically. At least what I hear now is that people are coming up for a breather and being able to think about the long term. And so I'd like to ask the question, and again, starting with you, Dennis, What's your time frame, right? I'm sure that you're thinking about what's the long-term implications, what's this journey look like, and so help us understand what's your timeline and how long do you estimate that it'll take you to get to the end state?
Sure. Realistically, we have the need today. So our goal is to have these solutions rolled out to the majority of our remote workforce, hopefully within the next 6 months. And ideally, we would like to transition as much as we can within 12 months to provide these better services.
I see. So that's the full $30,000, or not $30,000, but 30,000 count employees that are on this part of this journey in the next year.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing to go on that accelerated pace. And I guess switching to you, Jason, what does end state success look like for you, and what are the roadblocks you see that need to be overcome?
I wish I could tell you what the end state fully looks like at this point, right? I think right now it's primarily about feature parity. How do we get that same feature set that we offer to our users in the office, wherever they are, be it IDS, inspection, data loss protection, that sort of thing. Things that we've taken for granted for a year because somebody's always sitting in a single seat has now kind of been flipped on its end and pushed out to the end user, where we don't have that same sort of control as we would in an office. Definitely some of the roadblocks we're running into is sort of finding those pieces and how they fit together and interoperate with each other, and a single source or maybe one or two different sources that work well together within the industry and that will be compatible as we move forward with things.
I see. And that mirrors what I've been hearing from some of my conversations with end customers, the end users of this technology, is how do you go from something that may be of on-prem and that you can touch and feel, right? I call it the sheet metal era, to now it being kind of knobs and levers that are on the website that may feel very foreign to the network administrators, that again, coming from the era of being able to touch the equipment, be able to manipulate the knobs and levers and get a lot of rich functionality. So I don't think you should count yourself being an exception to this, and more so part of the larger group. Next question again for you, Jason, is how do you ensure that your applications are as secure as possible as you move to the cloud? You noted that some of the challenges that you oversee, and so what's the strategy that you've been embracing to scale out on that cloud-based architecture and make sure that the security and all the trims on the connectivity to those applications are preserved?
Yeah, it's really a matter of picking off small enough chunks that we can digest in kind of one bite, right? Be it, one day we might be, we'd be looking at an IDS solution. And then, the parity between, is this going to be the same when you're dealing with a data center versus cloud is also important to us. So we've been shifting a lot of things from a traditional centralized point out to one or multiple clouds to provide these services. And, some of the challenges we run into around that is, where is the data actually stored within a cloud?
Yeah.
Because when you're working with the decentralization of it, a user in the United Kingdom needs the same services, but that data can't necessarily come back to the United States and then back out to the internet and vice versa in order to make that happen. It has to stay regionally in a lot of cases.
You're absolutely right. That adds a whole new level of complexity that almost a Pandora's box in some regard, from a regulatory compliancy perspective and the sovereignty rules that may come into play. So again,
Absolutely.
Very echoing a lot of the things that I've been hearing that people have overcome them. So I don't want folks to. I think even you would say that slowly but surely, like you said, it's incrementally. And this being a journey, that it's not going to be it's not a slam dunk. It's not a question that you can go from overnight addressing all the things that need to come into play. Switching back to you, Dennis, and I'd like to understand how you planning to address the unified policy management for both the networking and security, and how's it going to work across cloud and in the on-prem environments?
Sure. Ideally, with security director being in the cloud, we could import all our existing infrastructure, even some of the firewalls that we necessarily didn't have in security director, import them all in, also intertwine that with our JAMS environment so that we have, the authentication not only based off, the old school source and destination, but we can tie everything back to Active Directory, and then also have the advanced services like SkyTP and IPS. And for us, Policy Enforcer is key in trying to run that all from one centralized location. So it brings everything together so we have true visibility into everything that's going across the wire.
Well, great answer, and I say that great answer because you hit on a number of things that were under the hood to when Samantha was asking me about the changes and the prerequisites for a SASE deployment. So you hit on the fact that it is unified policy, the fact that the identity side needs to be thought of, and being able to stitch these various worlds together that may have not been stitched in the way that they need to in service of this distributed, disaggregated environments that we find ourselves in. So kudos to you that you're on the tip of the spear on figuring things out. Now let me switch it here a little bit to the vendor side and being able to find that partner, right? Because I think when people and enterprises undertake these sorts of journeys, they lean heavily on their vendor base. And so I'd like to ask both of you, starting with you, Dennis, how do you find a SASE provider to partner with you on the SASE journey? Sure,
it's another great question. For us, relationships are key, and we already have a great relationship with Juniper, not only from the hardware side, but also from professional services and support side. I can't really think of any instances where they haven't gone above it and beyond our needs. So that's really important. And I have a great relationship with my upper management. So when I make a recommendation or I want to introduce a new technology or a new platform, the proof is in the pudding, right? They already have, the experience from our current vendors and see how well they perform and how we were able to mitigate some, risks in the past or some vulnerabilities, and, specifically with Policy Enforcer and what that's done for us. So it's not difficult for me to convince, management that this is the direction we should go, and they usually buy in pretty quickly.
I see. What about you, Jason? What's your thoughts on how do you, or have you selected a SASE provider to help you on your SASE journey?
We kind of echo what Dennis said, with the addition that what we find with the vendor is it's very important that they're willing to work with us and listen to kind of the issues we're running into within our deployment, right? It seems like there's always somebody that's got something different happening, and to be able to have that back and forth that we have with Juniper has been a huge advantage. The willingness to acknowledge that a feature is necessary, and many oftentimes we'll see it in probably a few weeks to a couple months, that'll be rolled into one of the releases.
That's great to hear. So that definitely echoes what leadership vendors need to do, which is listen to customers, right? I don't think vendors who force their technologies and solutions on their customers necessarily win in the long haul. It's the people who listen and interact and treat their customers as true partners. So that's good to hear. Let me shift it yet again to a more of a technology, almost philosophical question in terms of the organizational structure. And this question is for you, Dennis, I'm sure that SASE is starting to feel like change in your organization, and they may be facing obstacles and people refusing to embrace that change. So what is it that you're doing to evangelize the shift away from a static perimeter, which has been with us for decades, and the architecture is relying on a heavy branch, to go into this new style that is much more cloud-centric, much more amorphous, distributed, What are the key things that you've been undertaking to make this change?
Sure. So operationally, consolidation and integration into more of the cloud service that can touch more of our environment more easily and more accessible, and also for these remote users, for us, it saves a lot of time. So, operationally, instead of us having to touch individual devices or go into different environments, having that one centralized location, not only for, configuration and policy management, but also for auditing, and then the integration back into our existing SIM, it just makes us more streamlined so we can be more proactive instead of reactive all the time. And, my team being, the network side and the security side and inner workings between them, now, they don't have to jump between multiple panes of glass. Everything's in a single point. So, the information is more readily available to us when we actually need to, look at something.
I see. So it feels like it boils down to a almost a productivity argument that the IT teams become more productive, and so with the same set of resources, you could do more and be able to address a larger environment. And so I guess that has been the primary way. Have there been any other things that come to mind beyond the productivity argument, or has it been primarily just that?
No, and it's also, the feature set. So, there are products that are services that are available to us today with these, SASE platforms that we didn't have, yesterday or 6 months or a year ago, right? We didn't have that ability to touch and control some of these remote endpoints without having other infrastructure in place. So ultimately, budgetary wise, we're going to be able to provide better services for less money, which is always, key to upper management.
Yes, and again, it all goes back to how do you raise the bar in that user experience and make sure that at the same time, it's a win-win if you're able to reduce costs, right, and do more with less capital or other expenditures. I guess same question for you, Jason. Is it then? I assume that you've been facing the same sort of headwinds, if I can call them that Dennis has. So how is it that you've been able to get buy-in from your management and across your organization?
Pandemic did a lot to removing a lot of those roadblocks for us. There's obviously a financial aspect to it, right? We are seeing cost savings and increased feature sets, similar to Dennis. One of the problems we're actually having is slowing things down slightly. Because of the demand to move so quickly and to get everything out there at once. We have big concerns within the organization that things will get missed in sort of that rapid deployment, and that maybe a feature that was critical to a subset of users won't exist, right? So we have concerns such as those. I know I brought up sort of the data protection concerns earlier. There, different legal and contractual issues around compliance are kind of always at the top and the forefront of everyone's minds. But to sell it, to say, hey, we need to do this, it's kind of selling itself right now.
Yeah, so I heard the other day a great tagline that no one should let the crisis go to waste, right? So the pandemic's clearly a crisis that has provided air cover to be able to effect a lot of change that everyone's probably been, or a lot of people have been thinking about, but now it's perfect time to embrace this change. And so continuing this theme of change and changing the organization, I want to get a little more tactical, and a question to you, Dennis, is are there particular things that you're doing to prepare the team for this transition? And can you hit on anything that you're doing to make this easier for the team?
Yeah, I think that the integration of more of our devices into Security Director is definitely assisting. And when we make that transition to put it in the cloud, it just is being more streamlined. So it's really getting the network team to more work with the security guys, just to get a better understanding of where things need to be, restricted. And I always felt that the best security people were network people first. So now there's a little bit of cross training going on. So both guys are getting a little bit of experience on what the other teams are up to. So it just at the end of the day, it's going to provide a better experience for our constituents and our users.
I see. No, I'm just laughing because at least I've been in networking 20 years and most of those in security. And I would say to myself or introduce myself as being a networking geek with a security bent, right? Because like you, I think a lot of people that I run across in the industry did do networking at some point in their career and then pivoted to security. Jason, same question for you in terms of preparing the teams, your teams. What are you doing to prepare for this transition?
We throw our teams under the bus pretty quickly, right? They're always kind of chomping at the bit to improve and make their own lives easier. So they're willing to take that sort of guinea pig role in the transition and really deep dive into the technology and learn what it's about. I find it helps a lot even when we're rolling it to the end users afterwards. Because my team's familiar with the underpinnings and how things are actually working in the network and firewall sides. So being able to have the confidence as a team to explain it to who's actually receiving and using the technology as part of the rollout really assists in making things go smoothly.
I see. No, I think that's a very good approach to be able to eat your own dog food before you and get all the kinks worked out before you push it out to the wider community. Next question is for you, Dennis, and I'd like to understand is how do you see your SASE implementation affecting the user experience for administrators and end users?
Sure. I think that for the users on my teams, operationally things will be a lot easier because it will be centralized. There's one pane of glass that they have to access for a majority of tools that today are for the most part separate and maybe not the same vendor, proxies, for example. Ultimately, the better we can do our job is going to make the constituents' life easier, specifically for the, I keep going back to the web or the cloud-based proxy. Today, our environment is a mix, right? We have some legacy gear from a different vendor, and then we have our EWF. And EWF works fantastic, but again, you have to be VPN'd in for that to function, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the complaints we have from individuals are, when they connect to our VPN, maybe the pack file is not working correctly or something else, somebody unchecks the proxy, so they have to toggle back and forth. When everybody is on the same platform, uniformly across the enterprise, then that goes away. So ultimately, they have a better experience. And the advanced features like DLP and stuff that will come in the future, we just provide a safer environment. So at the end of the day, our data that we have to meet these compliance standards for, we feel better that it's safer. And ultimately, we're just providing services to the constituents or the citizens, so that anything we can do to streamline our operations provides a better product for them.
I see. No, that makes sense, and I think you would agree that the last thing you want is people figuring out that if they dislike the solution, how to get around it, right? And so the being able to get to a user experience that meets their expectations while at the same time meeting corporate networking and security policies is paramount. Jason, the next question I have is, how do you plan to deploy a SASE strategy while attempting to remove complexity from your environment or trying to introduce even more change, right? So what are the things that you're undertaking?
Yeah, so when we select a specific piece to migrate, it usually is based on can we take 2 or 3 divergent products that we're using now and make that consolidation on the cloud platform. And then from that aspect, what are we gaining with that consolidation? Are we just consolidating because, it's a single point of failure or support, or, are we actually gaining additional features? And I think kind of what we found most recently with our deployment of a lot of the Mist solution is with the deployment of the centralized management and the cloud solution, we can get our help desk and service people into those systems and get them that visibility that they need as part of the deployment. kind of bring them in up front with what's what traditionally has been a network admin role within the organization. And then they're able to service the users, the customers, and the clients much quicker without having to necessarily escalate every issue up to the network team or the security team for investigation initially. So we're really seeing that improvement of ticket quality, information, and time to resolution as part of the transition process.
Wow. So it almost sounds like then this change is having that benefit in making your environment, and like you said, mean time to resolution, as improving those metrics. So that's quite impressive that it's already having that positive side effect, because usually I think when a lot of enterprises embrace new technologies or new workflows, usually has the opposite effect, right? Is that all of a sudden you find yourself chasing bugs, and your ticket times start to get quite long. So kudos to you as well to being able to knock two birds with one stone. So we're getting here to the final question and the end of our time together. And the final question, starting with you, Dennis, is do you have current investments that you're looking to leverage as part of this transition? And are you taking inventory of your current network before making a SASE investment?
Absolutely, yeah. So our full plan is to utilize our existing security products. So our 300 or so SRXs that are deployed, and then also intertwining that with our NAC solution, and moving that policy out to the cloud. Using the SRXs as the enforcement point for the network, and yeah, absolutely, and it should just help us provide a better service to our customers.
I see. And same question for you, Jason. Are you do you have current investments and that you're going to leverage, and are you taking current stock of your environment before making an investment?
Yeah, absolutely. And we made the decision a while ago to go primarily Juniper for our edge within our data centers and offices. So it's really made that sort of transition to the SD-WAN pieces a lot easier on us, just because of the capabilities and such that are built into the platform. We're also, looking, as Dennis is, to start moving some of our like security director pieces and such into that cloud management, to sort of centralize that, or in a way decentralize it out of a single data center or multiple data centers into the cloud solution. Help with that availability and logging and such.
I see. And I think both of you are echoing that there's a lot of technology that's already deployed that in the ideal case is to take advantage of as you move into these new architectures in the SASE style. I think that's a very prudent and pragmatic move, because the last thing that your management probably wants to hear is like, we need to do a forklift upgrade and rip and replace, and everything that we deployed isn't going to get used. It tends to not go down well with the financial folks, let alone the CEOs. So kudos again to you guys that are already thinking about how to take advantage of what you have there, and being able to bring it into this new style of architecture and network and security connectivity. Well, with that, I want to thank you for taking my questions, and hopefully you will have good luck in continuing your SASE journey. And we hope to again see you here before long to get an update about where you are and how things have gone. So thank you again.
So I too want to thank Dennis and Jason for joining us today, for your candor, for just being open and transparent with us about how you are viewing the SASE journey, what challenges and how you're thinking about things moving forward. I certainly learned a lot from your discussion. And Maurizio, thank you for facilitating the discussion. I think you're touching on all the right questions. I know that I'm hearing from customers as well, and just from our conversations that you and I have had previously. So again, thank you everybody, and I hope everybody tuning in gained a little insight as well, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you.